Alright guys, today we're gonna be reacting to Thomas Sowell, How White Liberals Enforce Ghetto Life Among Blacks in America. Let's jump in.
Intellectuals in the 1960s began promoting the idea that those blacks who exhibited a culture different from the ghetto or black redneck culture were not really authentic blacks. This issue was strikingly demonstrated in a controversy between Irving Howe and Ralph Ellison, growing out of Howe's 1963 article criticizing such black writers as Ellison, whom Howe considered insufficiently authentic or militant. For Howe, the central character in Richard Wright's novel, Native Son, a ghetto black epitomizing the black redneck culture, was authentic, and the more sophisticated central character in Ellison's novel, Invisible Man, was not. Ellison rejected and derided the idea of a white man defining what a black man should be and attempting to confine individual blacks to that stereotype. The notion that the ghetto black was the authentic
So sad.
black not only spread among both white and black intellectuals, it had social repercussions far beyond the intellectual community. Rooting black identity in a counterproductive culture not only reduced incentives to move beyond that culture, it cut off those within that culture from other blacks who had advanced beyond it, who might otherwise have been sources of examples, knowledge, and experience that could have been useful to those less fortunate. But more successful blacks were increasingly depicted as either irrelevant non-members of the black community or even as traitors to it. In turn, this meant that many blacks who had a wider cultural exposure and greater socioeconomic success felt a need to conform, to some degree or another, to a more narrow ghetto view of the world, perhaps using ghetto language in order to prove their identity with their own race.
Wow.
Such social pressures become especially acute for young blacks in the schools and colleges. One consequence of this has been that counterproductive attitudes toward education have filtered upward into black middle-class young people raised in racially integrated.
What happened to that community, man? They were doing so well. To a straight a-hole. That community went down to hell. I mean, I have a lot of hypotheses why.
Middle-class communities such as Shaker Heights, who spend less time on their studies than their white or Asian American classmates, under the overhanging threat of being accused of acting white if they devote themselves to their studies instead of to various social activities in which other black students indulge. The painful irony is that those who make this accusation are themselves acting white when they perpetuate a redneck culture from a bygone era. Even such a modern ghetto creation as gangster rap echoes the violence, arrogance, loose sexuality, and self-dramatization common for centuries in white redneck culture, and speaks in exaggerated cadences common in the oratory of rednecks in both the antebellum South and those parts of Britain from which their ancestors came. It is not only the cultural peculiarities of the black ghetto culture.
But do we really think has to be connected with the white Southerners? But why they never kept? Oh, well, they still have it, but why it's not as prevalent as the black community? I know you can say like Tennessee, certain areas in the South, like such as West Virginia, Tennessee, or even Virginia, Georgia. You might have South Carolina, and we might have some white rednecks culture, but why it's not spreading? Why in the black community just spreading? And some other people, they take a look, like Hispanic, Asians, they just somehow just gravitate towards that culture,
Which has been perpetuated by the identity fetish developed in the post-1960s era. What has also been promoted has been a conformity of beliefs and affirmations among blacks, with those with different viewpoints being banished from consideration intellectually and ostracized socially, at least insofar as identity advocates succeed in imposing their straitjacket on others. Not only behavioral litmus tests, but ideological litmus tests have been used by those promoting a black identity fetish, with those who do not pass such litmus tests being dismissed as not really black. This post-1960s black identity intolerance, promoted by white intellectuals as well as black leaders and activists, is a painful parallel to the post-1830s intolerance among white Southerners against anyone who questioned slavery in any way. Maintaining what has been aptly called an intellectual blockade against ideas differing from those prevailing in the South, antebellum Southerners not only insulated themselves from ideas and viewpoints originating outside the region, but, at the same time, in effect drove out of the South independent-minded people who would not march in lockstep. The resulting narrow and unquestioning conformity of that era led the South into the blind alley of a civil war that devastated wide sections of the region and left a legacy of bitterness that lasted for generations. It can only be hoped that today's narrow intolerance promoted by a black identity fetish will not lead into similarly disastrous blind alleys.
Well, then that was strong. That was very nice. That was very nice. How white liberals enforce ghetto life among Black America. Sad. I personally think that, I don't know, man. It's weird to think about, right? It's weird to think about, but man, black people, the black culture is so bad, man. It's so toxic. It's very unproductive. It's dangerous, and it promotes degeneracy. The man himself said it best: if you want to help someone, tell them the truth. Your attitude and lifestyle are holding you back. If you want to help yourself, tell them that what they want to hear. The entire system is holding you back. Don't worry. Keep voting for us and we will fix you. That's what happened in California. These dumbasses, these people thought that California was just going to simply just give them money. It was reparation. Stupid. That's a stupid even way of thinking. Super unconstitutional. I am reminded of Al Sharpton's original criticism of Obama as not being down with the struggles. Now that Kamala Harris is black, there's no such criticism of her. She's not, though, by the way. She's not. My favorite was when Larry Elder, who ran for governor of California, libtards were actually calling him a black white supremacist. The only reason is that he ran as a Republican. Yeah, it's bad. It's the culture in itself. I don't know how we're gonna do that. We have the easiest way is to get rid of it, right? To get rid of the culture itself. However, how are we gonna do it? Well, I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. I will see you in the next one.